Craftsman Days are here at Lowe's with big savings on the tools you need. Save $100 on the Craftsman V20 6-Tool Power Tool Combo Kit, now at $199. No matter what the project is, Craftsman's high-quality, high-performance products empower you to build on. Stop by your nearest Lowe's store and check out the full line of Craftsman tools today. Valid through 6/18 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Nats Chat is brought to you by Walters. Hey, join us at Walters for the first ever Nats Chat podcast party. We'll hang out, watch playoff baseball, chat about the Nats, and get to know fellow fans of the team.
The event begins at 7 p.m. at Walters, just across from Nationals Park, on Friday night, October 14th.
The 0-2. Swinging a slow ground ball, backing up on it. Mountcastle at first. He'll throw to second. They'll get one. The return throw to first with Kramer covering is too late. And so a run will score. Garcia hustles that one out. Thomas crosses the plate, and the Nationals lead 3-1.
2 men to the left, 2 to the right. Now the pitch. Swinging a fly ball as well to right center field. Thomas in the run going way back to the warning track, to the wall, and it is gone. Over the 14-foot 8-inch wall in right center field. And he has tied the game on the third pitch here in the top of the 5th inning. Infield in, runners second and third. A run home, we're tied at 3. The pitch swung on into the air to right center field. It's shallow, coming on as Meneses into a slide, and he can't make the play. Runners had to hold, so now Henderson comes in to score. Over to third goes Arias, and into second with a pop fly double is Austin Hayes. And the Orioles lead 4-3.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Wednesday, September 14th, 2022, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who was at Nationals Park. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. Round 2 of the 2022 Battle of the Beltways got underway on Tuesday night. Game 1 of a 2-game series for the Nats against the visiting Orioles. The result was a 4-3 Nats loss. Nats were up 3-1 through 3 innings, but then came the struggles of a former Oriole, Hunter Harvey. We had a lot of quality young talent on display in this game. C.J. Abrams and Luis Garcia for the Nats, Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson for the O's. Pretty good game. Ultimately, though, another Nats loss. You know, I was thinking, Mark, I mean, you have the Nats and the O's. You have this rivalry or pseudo-rivalry. In college football, you have a cup, like, say, the Apple Cup, in a rivalry. Can we have maybe like the Masson Cup for these Nats-O's games, and like the winner of the series for the season gets the Masson Cup? Like, maybe we could put your face on one side of the cup, Rock Kabakko's face on the other side of the cup. I don't know. Is there something we could do to spice things up a little bit?
I mean, if that wouldn't motivate these guys to give their very best, I don't know what possibly would. I'll see who I can talk to from the home office and see if they can get that thing ready in time for Wednesday's finale. We're kind of running out of time here, but it's funny because every year they play each other, and whoever the manager is inevitably gets asked about the rivalry, and they'll, say the right thing and all that. And you can tell that, look, to be honest, for the players, most of the people in uniform, it really doesn't have any extra meaning, especially at this point where the teams have changed so much and they're very different places now in their rebuilding efforts. And then the game starts and there's a healthy amount of fans from the visiting team, whether it's down here in D.C. or when we're up in Baltimore. And it does actually create a different kind of juice for those games. Now, I don't know if the players feel it or not. Certainly, for them, these games aren't as meaningful as when the Nats are facing the Braves or the Mets, or for the Orioles when they're facing the Yankees or the Red Sox. But I do think for fans, it does still have something to it. And the fact that they had an announced crowd of 31,679 on a Tuesday night in September says a lot, because you've got a team going nowhere that we know the interest level is way down. And yeah, there are a lot of Oriole fans here, of course, but there were still a pretty good number of Nats fans on a Tuesday night. And I give them credit. They've done better attendance-wise than I thought they would here down the stretch of this season.
Yeah, I think that's kind of an underrated aspect of this Nats season, the fact that their home attendance has not cratered to the extent that you would think that the home attendance might have cratered given the season that the Nats are having. I mean, for comparison's sake, Nationals' average home attendance this season is much better than Orioles' home attendance this season, even though the O's are in playoff contention and the Nats are not. And I know that these figures are paid attendance. We get that. But still, I mean, that's true for every team. I'm just looking at ESPN.com right now. The Nats, in terms of average home attendance for this season, per the latest data here, 19th out of 30 major league teams. That's pretty good when you're the worst team in the majors. Now, I guess next season might be the ultimate test because next season, you know that things are probably not going to be good. At least this season, you still had, say, a Juan Soto, a Josh Bell. So maybe next season, the attendance figures crater. But I give the Nats credit. I give the Nats fans a lot of credit. This is not, an Oakland situation, a Miami situation. Like, people are showing up at Nationals Park.
And, we've talked about this for 2 years doing the podcast. We know there is a diehard fan base out there. And I think one of the most encouraging things over the last couple of months is to see how much interest and even in some ways renewed interest there is in the team in spite of the trade and in spite of the record. There's a lot of genuine enthusiasm for the young guys on this team and wanting to see how this is all going to come together over the next several years. Now, I do think the numbers next year are going to go down. I think the season ticket base, obviously, and that's what so much of this is about. It's hard to imagine how that won't go down significantly next year. But they do this thing right, and I think the fans will come back. And as we know, there is a loyal group of you out there, those of you who listen to us every single day, and we can't ever thank you enough for that, who are in this thick and thin no matter what. And, I think we're still seeing that here at this stage of the season.
Yeah, I think it says a lot about D.C. as a baseball town. Many years ago, someone said there are no real baseball fans in D.C. That's a fiction. I think that has been proven to be false. There are real baseball fans in D.C. and in the D.C. area. Well, the former Oriole, Hunter Harvey, he had been good for the Nats, but he ended up having a rough outing in this game on Tuesday night. So Davey Martinez, I guess, said to himself, hey, off day on Monday, off day on Thursday, I'm just going to go all in with my bullpen. Cory Abbott did not have a very long outing as an Nats starting pitcher. Davey ended up using 6 relievers in this game. If you didn't know better, you'd think that the Nats were in playoff contention with the way Davey was playing things from a bullpen perspective. The bullpen ended up overall doing well. 6 Nats relievers combined to allow 2 runs in 6 innings with 6 strikeouts. But the guy who struggled was Hunter Harvey, the former Oriole. He allowed 2 runs in 1 1/3 innings. The Orioles' 2-run fifth allowed 2 runs, recorded just 1 out, gave up a leadoff homer to Ryan Mountcastle, gave up a full count double by Gunnar Henderson, gave up a single by Ramon Urias on a 1-2 pitch, issued a wild pitch, and then gave up a 1-out RBI double by Austin Hayes. This was another game in which the Nats, for the most part, did not hit, but I guess it stands out, A, because Harvey used to be with the O's, but B, he's done a good job with the Nats. And so to see him give up a homer, to see him struggle and labor as he ended up struggling and laboring, that stood out just because we're not really used to that from Hunter Harvey as a National.
Yeah, so there's actually a lot to put together from this one. First of all, this was really the first time we've seen him struggle to that extent. It's the first home run he's allowed this season in the big league. So that was a surprise. You also had, for the second straight time, him pitching multiple innings and throwing a lot of pitches, something that I don't know that I ever would have expected to see Davey Martinez allow him to do, given his injury history. He pitched on Sunday in Philadelphia and threw 39 pitches over 2 innings. Comes back with 1 day off. He gets through that 4th inning, gets a quick double play, gets out of that inning, and comes back. He was on only 7 pitches that inning, comes back for the 5th, and he ends up throwing in this game 27 pitches over an inning and a third. Now, he says he's feeling great, and I guess that's a great sign that they have gotten to a point with Hunter Harvey that they aren't so much worried about his arm that they could let him do that. But boy, it felt in the moment like you're kind of pushing the envelope here a little bit too much. Then you have the whole issue of him facing the Orioles again. And as Hunter told us afterwards, he was way amped up for this. And especially Ryan Mountcastle, his best buddy in his wedding party. They talked to each other every day. They'd been talking trash for days leading up to this outing. And Hunter said he grooved him. I mean, he didn't try to, but he grooved a 99-mile-an-hour fastball down the pipe. Mountcastle homers. And they look at each other going around the bases, and they literally both laughed. And Harvey was laughing as he's telling the story, but he's also really down on himself, saying, I can't believe I was laughing after giving up a home run. Like, I can't do that. This clearly was an unusual situation for him and for Mountcastle, one they were excited to have, but also it seems like Hunter Harvey really let his emotions get the best of him in a way that we had not seen before.
That's notable, and that's interesting, and I guess, good for him for admitting to that. I think you can forgive him laughing. I don't think it's because, he doesn't take the game seriously or anything like that. That was a unique circumstance. I mean, it's worth noting the Nats did not get Harvey directly from the O's. The Nats claimed Harvey off waivers from the San Francisco Giants this past November. But yeah, I mean, he was with the O's for years, 8+ years, in fact. The O's took Hunter Harvey with the number 22 pick in the 2013 MLB draft. And we've talked about this. He's been around professional baseball for almost a decade now. This is only, though, his age 27 season. He's so young. He's been hurt so often. The talent is there. He's done a good job for the Nats. Did not have a good night, though, on Tuesday night. But like I said, the Nats bullpen in this game, I thought was impressive because after Hunter Harvey, you got 1-0 after another. Andres Machado comes into the game, bottom of the fifth, faces two batters, gets 2 outs despite entering the game with runners on second and third, just 1 out, and the Nats down 4-3. Jordan Weems, a scoreless top of the sixth. Steve Cishek, a scoreless top of the seventh with 2 strikeouts and a hit by pitch because, of course, he issued a hit by pitch. But Mason Thompson, perfect top of the eighth. Carl Edwards Jr., a scoreless top of the ninth. I mean, this was not necessarily the Nats' A bullpen, although, I guess you had Edwards pitching. But Machado, Weems, Cishek, Thompson, and Edwards all doing a good job for the Nats.
Yeah, and it's the reason why I felt like watching this game play out, I never imagined it was going to end at 4-3. I thought they were going to come through at some point there, do something and take advantage of that work they were getting out of their bullpen. It just didn't happen for them offensively. But Mason Thompson, we've talked about him. He keeps getting these opportunities, and Davey actually put him specifically in a spot against the top of the Orioles lineup. He wanted to see how you would face them late in a game like that. Another 1-2-3 inning. Mason Thompson has been really impressive since he came back up. And so if you want to project this out to next year, and you're looking at them still having under their control Kyle Finnegan, Carl Edwards, Hunter Harvey, Mason Thompson, Andres Machado, who am I forgetting that's also on that list?
Tanner Rainey, if he's healthy.
Well, yeah, right. Whenever he comes back. I mean, they have some pieces to work with there, and that's a nice position to be in and something they have not been in really in a long time, if ever, in their history. Now, it's relievers, so as we know, year to year, it may not all work out and they may not all have the same success. But when you have that many of them, you don't necessarily need them all to pan out. You just hope that a couple of them continue the success that they've shown this year. So that has been really, over the last couple months, such a striking thing to see how that bullpen has kept them in a lot of these games. And when they just hit a little bit, they're in a position to win games late, and they have actually pulled it off a few times here lately.
The sample size of Mason Thompson at the major league level this season is tiny. I mean, he's only thrown 15 innings, but he, over those 15 innings, has allowed 1 run. He has an ERA of 0.60. He has a whip of 0.67. I mean, what we have seen has been impressive. He's done a really good job, did another good job in this game on Tuesday night. By the way, I was thinking about this, and this might be like a philosophical question, but if Steve Cishek faced Victor Robles, how could the result not be like the greatest hit by pitch in the history of hit by pitches, right? Because all Cishek does is issue hit by pitches. All Robles does is take hit by pitches. I feel like it would just be this cataclysmic event of a hit by pitch if Cishek faced Robles.
All right, now I got to look it up because I'm sure they faced each other. He has been hit 3 plate appearances, 2 at-bats, 1 strikeout, 1 hit by pitch. There it is.
So it has happened, but I would think if it happened again, it would be something special. Cishek versus Robles. We can only hope at some point we do see something like that. Hey guys, it's Al Galdi for Window Nation. We are into September, a time for pennant races in baseball, and Window Nation is offering pennant race-worthy savings. New windows from Window Nation at half the price. Get 2 free windows with every 2 windows that you buy, plus pay nothing with no interest until 2025. Lower your energy bills, raise the value of your home with new energy-efficient windows from Window Nation. Visit windownation.com or call 866-90NATION and tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you. Window Nation windows are the best. You know, the longer that you have old, drafty windows, the more money that you're wasting on your heating and cooling bills. Window Nation has saved customers over $60 million on energy bills, and the average Window Nation installer has over 16 years of experience with 20,000 windows installed. Window Nation windows are great, and Window Nation windows are installed right the first time. Take advantage of this terrific deal. Buy 2 windows, get 2 windows free. This goes for any style of new window from Window Nation and pay nothing until 2025. Visit windownation.com or call 866-90NATION. That's windownation.com or 866-90NATION and tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you.
Here's the set now of the pitch. Swing and a miss. Struck him out and the game's over. Got him with the splitter. And Felix Bautista records his 13th save in 14 tries. And the Orioles, who came in having lost 6 of 8, an uphill climb in the wild card race in the American League, get a much needed win for them in the opening game of this brief 2-game Battle of the Beltways Interleague Series.
So for the Nats offense on Tuesday night, just 3 runs, 8 hits, a mere 2 walks, 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. The Nats did have 4 doubles. 4 of the 8 hits were doubles, but another one of these games in which the offense was unable to do much. Initially in the game, the offense was good, 3 runs over the first 3 innings, but then after that, not much happening. Now, very interesting development in the Davey Martinez Nats lineup on Tuesday night. Luis Garcia was your Nats number 4 batter, as Davey, mercifully, did not have Nelson Cruz as the cleanup batter. Nelson was the number 5 batter, but Nelson was not the number 4 batter. Luis Garcia was the Nats cleanup batter, and he went 1 for 4 with an RBI double and an RBI force out. Garcia in the Nats 1-run first, a 2-out opposite field RBI bloop double to left field to tie the game at 1, and then Garcia in the Nats 2-run third grounded into a 1-out RBI force out for a 3-1 Nats lead. Now, Nelson, like I said, number 5 batter, then got pinch hit for by Josh Palacios. We have seen Nelson lately deal with a lot of minor stuff, exit games, then maybe miss a game or 2 or 3. Do we know why Nelson was pinch hit for in this game on Tuesday night?
Yeah, in this case, he was having an issue with his left eye. He was having blurry vision, and I guess he had the same thing in Philadelphia. Remember, he missed a game there. It was a scratch from the lineup, and that was going on there. So that's not a good thing. He's going to get it checked out. We'll see if it's anything to be concerned about. But yeah, Davey moved him out of the cleanup spot. As far as why Garcia was there, I think it was more a reflection of what the other alternatives were than necessarily a huge endorsement of him as a cleanup hitter, although he said drove in 2 runs. I thought what was interesting there is we have seen them at times go Thomas 1, Garcia 2, and then Meneses Voit. And instead here you had Meneses 2, Voit 3, and Garcia 4. Maybe a sign of Davey looking at Joey Meneses as his clearly best hitter right now and saying, I want as many at-bats as possible from you. I'm putting you in the 2 spot, even if it leaves somebody like Luis Garcia, not a traditional cleanup hitter, in the number 4 spot. So I thought the way they were hitting early in the game, this was going to be a good offensive night for them. And they just did not sustain it at all after the 3rd inning. And they had a couple of chances later on and squandered them at times because of poor execution, at times because of some fundamental flaws with base running.
Yeah, I mean, Nats offense overall has been a lot better lately. We should make that clear. But this was not a particularly good night on Tuesday night. You mentioned the flawed base running. Geez, where have we heard and seen that before with the Nats this season? C.J. Abrams on Tuesday night, your Nats starting shortstop and number 7 batter, 1 for 4 with a double. So good to see him have an extra base hit. Bottom of the 6th, a leadoff opposite field double to the left center field gap. He then, though, on the very next pitch, got thrown out at third base on a grounder off the bat of the Nats starting catcher on Tuesday night, Israel Pineda.
Tate to the plate, and a swing and a ground ball to short. Abrams breaks for third. Mateo throws to third, and the tag is there in time, and Abrams is out.
Look, C.J. Abrams has been a lot better offensively lately. What was he thinking, though, in running from second to third on a grounder to shortstop like that?
He admitted he just got too aggressive there. He realized a mistake. You never run on a ground ball hit in front of you. If it's behind you as the runner on second base, you go. If it's in front of you, you hold up, especially with nobody out. He knew it was a big mistake. He said, I'll never let it happen again. So, credit to him for that. He's 21 years old. We know he's going to make some mistakes. He's been overall really good here lately. You don't want to harp on it too much, but that was a big one in a 1-run game where it could have made a pretty big difference if he just does the right thing. So bad play. And, you can say, okay, he's 21 years old. He's going to make a mistake. And yes, that's all fine. And I would trust that that's not going to become a recurring issue for him. But on a team that has run into so many outs on the bases this year, it's pretty frustrating to see, especially in a 1-run loss.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the season, if you want to rank what was the Nats' biggest problem this season, I think there are like 5 or 6 different answers that are acceptable. But if you tell me it's base running and the many, many outs that this team has run into, I don't think that you're wrong if you say that. I mean, this team has cost itself so many outs and thus so many runs this season just with bad base running throughout this season. You also have had bad defense for the Nats for most of this season, although the defense lately has been a lot better, especially in the infield. I did, though, want to highlight what continues to be the case at first base. And, I don't want to beat up on Nelson Cruz here again, especially if he's dealing with this left eye situation. I mean, I certainly hope that he's okay. But, as we've talked about, Nelson being the regular DH clogs up that spot, and it forces Luke Voit to be the every game first baseman, because if you want Luke's bat in the lineup, he's got to play first base. The Nats on Tuesday night were charged with 2 throwing errors, and I think you could argue that each one was another instance of the first baseman, Luke Voit, not catching a throw that, yes, wasn't perfect, okay, but also, yes, was catchable. So Luis Garcia in the top of the 7th got charged with a throwing error, as he in throwing from second base to first base for a potential double play made a one-hop throw that got by Luke Voit. Not a great throw, but at the same time, I think a good defensive first baseman can catch that throw. And then Ildemaro Vargas on Tuesday night got charged with a throwing error. Vargas was the Nats' starting third baseman. His throwing error, and I put throwing error in quotation marks, came in an Orioles 1-run 4th. Vargas made a really good play. This was a slow roller off the bat of Jorge Mateo for what was ultimately an infield single. Vargas made an impressive charging and barehanded scoop of the ball. His throw to first base got by Voit, who did his Luke Voit thing of lunging and falling over. It's like Humpty Dumpty. Like, he falls over so many times when he's trying to catch these throws that, yes, are less than perfect, less than ideal. I recognize that. But, geez, not every throw to first base is like bullseye, pinpoint accurate, right to you where your glove is like, right by your chest. Like, okay, you're going to have to move a little bit. You're going to have to extend yourself a little bit. He's not graceful. He's a big, bulky guy. We get it. Defense isn't Luke Voit's thing. Like, I'm not trying to shame Luke Voit, but, geez, this really does stand out. So many throws already. I mean, this hasn't been that long that Luke Voit has been the Nats' regular first baseman, but so many throws. We've had this discussion already so many times of, like, throws that could have been caught but aren't caught by Luke Voit, and the throws go down as throwing errors, quote-unquote, on whoever made the throws.
All the King's horses and all the King's men couldn't put Luke Voit together again?
No, unfortunately, no.
So, yeah, here's the thing. In a perfect world, a first baseman makes those catches, of course, scoops them. But if you can't do that, you got to at least knock it down. Don't let it get past you. And that's what we're seeing here, because the ball gets past you and it goes all the way to the dugout. There was one of them, Israel Pineda's, racing down the line to back it up and almost got there and didn't quite get it. The ball ends up in the dugout. That's an automatic extra base for the runner. So you have to have that awareness of, do I have a shot at making the scoop, maybe getting the out? If not, whatever you have to do to knock it down and keep it in front of you to at least keep the runner at first base, not let anybody else advance. And he has not done a good job of that. Now, I just keep thinking back over the years, how many errors did Ryan Zimmerman save? How many errors did Adam LaRoche save from their infielders by making good scoops on less than perfect throws? It's a big, big part of this. And when you have young infielders who are supposed to be such a big part of their future, I keep saying I think it's really important that they have a first baseman who can help them, make them better, not make them worse, not make them even think more about, oh, I better make a perfect throw or else we're in trouble. Like, they got enough going on to be thinking about that too. They should just react, make the best throw they can, and trust that their first baseman is going to be there to make the play. And so I do think it's an issue for them moving forward. I don't think they can go into 2023 with Luke Voit as their first baseman. And maybe they won't. Maybe they're going to move him to DH, or maybe they aren't even going to re-sign him. But you got to find out now if Joey Meneses is appreciably better. And if not, you got to know that so you can go into the offseason and look at somebody else. And we just have not seen enough of Meneses. We know he's better than Voit. We haven't really seen enough of him to know what kind of first baseman he is.
It really is annoying and like off-putting that we are in the dying days of this oh-so-bad Nats season, a lost season. This is essentially like an exhibition period. Why you wouldn't have Joey Meneses as your every game first baseman to see how he is defensively at that position, to see if your infield for next season and maybe beyond features Joey Meneses at first base and Luis Garcia at second base and CJ Abrams at shortstop. Like, Why wouldn't you be doing that? This is very odd to me. It doesn't make sense. Like, forget about the Nelson Cruz stuff. Why the heck wouldn't you be evaluating Meneses at first base? Why are you wasting your time with Luke Voit at first base when it's so clear that that's not his position? He's a DH. So if you're going to keep him moving forward, he's your DH. You don't have that many games left in this season. And that's now our 49 and 93 on the season. We just have a few weeks left in the year. Why wouldn't Davey Martinez be having Meneses as the regular first baseman? Why wouldn't Mike Rizzo be telling Davey, hey, Davey, we want to evaluate Joey here? It's very strange to me that that's not happening.
The only thing I can think of is that they just feel like they already know that Joey Meneses either is or is not a first baseman worthy of that position next year. And they base that off what they've learned at AAA. But it's a different story at AAA, as we've seen, than it is in the big leagues. Why wouldn't you want to get as much information as you can? You see them do it with so many other players who could be part of the future. They are making an effort to get as good of a look as many of these guys as they can, except in this case. And I don't have a really good answer for it other than maybe they think they already know that Meneses is fine there. And maybe they just feel like they owe too much for whatever reason to Nelson Cruz and do not want to disrespect him, even though I don't think that he'd be disrespected in the least if he was not in the lineup every day.
It better not be because they feel like they owe something to Nelson Cruz. I mean, that is insane if they feel that.
Well, they owe him $15 million.
Yeah, they've shown him enough respect, okay? They have treated him with nothing but respect, okay? It's very odd, very strange. Throughout these last few years with the Nats, we have seen them at times almost be in denial that they're in a rebuild. And yet, right, they do things that are so obvious in terms of like being in accordance with a rebuild, right? Like that sell-off of July 2021, that screamed, we admit we're in a rebuild. The way the Nats acted this past offseason in barely acquiring anybody, that screamed, hey, we get it. We're in a rebuild. Trading away Juan Soto and Josh Bell, that screams, hey, we're in a rebuild. And yet at the same time, you continue to play Nelson Cruz in his age 41 season. You're not having Joey Meneses play first base. It's a weird juxtaposition. Like on the one hand, it feels like you are all in on, hey, this is where we're at. And then on the other hand, you're still doing something like this Nelson Cruz thing and not having Joey Meneses play first base. So it is strange. But yeah, here we are. Nats with one game to go here against the Orioles. I mentioned Cory Abbott. He had a rough outing, 2 runs in just 3 innings of work in this game on Tuesday night. He threw a lot of pitches and not many for strikes. He threw 72 pitches, 41 for strikes. But I had a thought with this game from an Orioles perspective that I think applies to the Nats. So the Orioles starting pitcher in this game was this guy, Dean Kremer. And, he was so-so in this game. He allowed 3 runs in 5 innings. Dean Kremer last season was one of the worst pitchers in the majors. Dean Kremer's a guy who the O's got from the Dodgers in the Manny Machado trade. A trade, by the way, that really hasn't worked out so well for the O's. They really didn't get much for Machado in terms of the prospects panning out. Kremer right now seems to be the best of the bunch. Kremer last season at the major league level had an ERA of 7.55. He got twice demoted to AAA Norfolk. Kremer this season, even with his outing on Tuesday night, 18 games, 17 starts, ERA of 3.34. He's been a lot better this season than he was last season. Dean Kremer is one of the guys who I've thought about when I think about Josiah Gray in terms of someone who was really bad one year and then took a giant step forward the next year. Now, Gray this year is not as bad as Kremer was last year. Kremer last year was worse than what Gray has been this year. But, if we're being honest, Gray is not having a very good season, especially as this season goes on. And I think it is instructive, and I think that it is encouraging to see a guy like Kremer who can look so bad one year, look so much better the next year. It can happen. It does happen. Young pitchers taking big steps forward. That's obviously what we want to see from Gray and others. And it kind of stands out to me because the O's are where you want the Nats to be, right? A team on the rise, a team with a bunch of young players coming up and looking like they're going to be good. Like, Adley Rutschman looks like he's going to be great. Gunnar Henderson looks like he's going to be great. So just something to keep in mind if you're a Nats fan, what Dean Kremer did and what hopefully guys like Josiah Gray end up doing.
You just mentioned Kramer's name so many times. I'm wondering if you're looking for a discount on your eyeglasses.
Well, I was thinking we had that pitcher, Jason Alexander, earlier this year, right? So if ever there's a matchup, Dean Kremer versus Jason Alexander, that's like, the end of the planet, I think.
Nexus of the universe, perhaps.
Something to keep in mind here with the Nats. All right. So the Nats at the major league level are not in the postseason this year, but the FredNats are in the low A playoffs this year. Their best of three series with the Lynchburg Hillcats got going on Tuesday night. And the FredNats won in shutout fashion, a 2-0 victory. And the reason to be mindful of this more than anything is that Jackson Rutledge was the FredNats starting pitcher, and he was great. 8 scoreless innings, 6 strikeouts versus 1 walk. He only gave up 3 hits. We've mentioned Jackson Rutledge a bit as the season has gone on. It hasn't gone well overall for him since the Nats took him with a first-round pick a few years ago. But this season is proving to be a step-forward season for Jackson Rutledge. So, of having dealt with injury, of having dealt with ineffectiveness, maybe possibly he's on track here. He's looked good. He's looked especially good lately. And obviously, in a big spot, as big as a low-A postseason game can be, he came through on Tuesday night.
Yeah, so the number one goal for Jackson Rutledge this year was stay healthy, get innings, make a bunch of starts. So he got to that point now. He's doing that. Now he's also dominating, taking another step, which I think is really significant. Now he's doing this as an older pitcher at low A ball. He is more advanced, or should be more advanced, than the hitters he's facing. But they knew this year is just about keeping him on the mound and getting him through a season. And now next year, you can maybe start the process of advancing him up the ladder. So that'll be next for him. But that's really nice to see. Number one, that he's healthy. Number two, pitching as well as he is. And let's hear it for the FredNats, who are now on Thursday night going to have a chance to sweep the best of 3 series, and will be sending Harleen Susana to the mound, the 18-year-old flamethrower who came in the Juan Soto, Josh Bell trade. That would be very cool for them if not only did they win this series to advance to the Carolina League Championship, but did so behind pitching performances from 2 legitimate building blocks for the Nationals. I can't help but think of how last year, totally different roster, of course, but last year the FredNats start the year 0-17, one of the worst in minor league history for anybody. And here they are the following season, playing potentially for a league title and doing it with legitimate prospects. When you talk about minor league teams' success and winning titles, it really does not matter in the big picture, except when you're talking about teams that are winning with actual prospects. I think that is significant for them and their development.
Yeah, I mean, the Nats farm system clearly has gotten better. Now, obviously, there's a conversation to be had of why it got better. Like, did you have to make the trade that helped to make it so much better? The trade that netted Harleen Susana and some other prospects? But that's a different conversation. Yeah, I mean, the FredNats clearly are in a better spot than they were a year ago. MacKenzie Gore is going to make another rehab start. And it's funny, there's quite the buildup here for this guy to make one major league start, right? I mean, it's hard to remember something like this where it's like, geez, the goal is just one start and that's going to be it. And, what if the start doesn't go well? But he does seem to be tracking toward making that start. And it looks like another minor league rehab start is coming.
I mean, it's all we have at this point to get excited about, right? We thought we were going to see Gray, Cavalli, and Gore somewhat here in September, and we're not seeing Cavalli, although he may be cleared to throw here in the next couple of days. That's a good sign. We're seeing Gray, although he's struggling, and we're just hoping to see something of Gore before it's all said and done. So he is slated for now to pitch for Rochester on Friday. Hopefully actually get the 3 innings complete, 45 to 50 pitches. That would all be good. The sense from him in the other start the other day was that he just wasn't sharp. There was nothing physically wrong with him. He just didn't have command of he would want, which I guess is understandable when you're making your first rehab start and haven't pitched in a while. But he is trending and tracking towards building himself up to be able to make at least 1, maybe 2 starts for the Nats here at the end. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but right now you got to cling to whatever you can. And I do think it would help everybody if we could have a chance to see him and hopefully have him pitch somewhat well to give you a sense of what he can be going into next year.
So this would be the thing. What if he doesn't pitch well? Does that make people feel worse? Or is it just, hey, if he pitches and he's healthy through the outing, the results don't actually matter?
I think that's what they will say because, of course, you're going to try to find the silver linings in everything. But it would be nice if he pitched well, wouldn't it? Especially, you talked about that last week of the season when they're facing, I believe, the Braves and the Mets. So those could actually be some pretty significant games that you may have him out there.
It would be nice if he pitched well. I hope that he does. What I don't want to see is him come in and get shellacked, and then we're like, well, now what? Because you are taking a chance, even if he pitches and he makes it up to that point healthy. If he gets rocked, okay, well then what? Is he going to feel worse going into his offseason? You could play it conservative and just say, hey, do your rehab work. You're not going to pitch in a game here, but let's work hard and let's target spring training. There is a bit of a risk, especially if you're facing a better team, that he could have a hard time in his first major league outing for the Nats. I mean, we saw what happened with Cade Cavalli in his debut. It didn't go so well. And that doesn't mean anything for the future necessarily, but it's not just, hey, if he pitches, you feel great. If he pitches and he struggles, well, then what do you think?
Yeah, the one thing I'd say here that's different is he had pitched, the first 3-4 months of the season for the Padres was really good for about 2 months before he started to have trouble and then revealed the elbow inflammation. So it's not like it's his major league debut and this is the only thing we would have to work off. It's just the only thing we'd have to work off of him as a national. So I don't think it's going to change anybody's opinion of what he is. I would imagine he has done enough already to know and be confident in his own abilities that he wouldn't let a rough outing get to him and ruin his whole offseason. But yeah, there is some risk, of course, in doing it. I think, like we've said all along, the feeling here is if he's ready and he's a pitcher and this is what he does for a living, then why not put him out there? I'm sure they will be watching him more closely. It's not going to be let the reins off and he goes 100 pitches, anything like that. But they figure if he's ready and there's still season left, put him out there.
Yeah, and that's fine. And it will be exciting when he pitches. I mean, that will be something to look forward to. Well, this episode of the podcast is for Wednesday, September 14th. 3 weeks from Wednesday, September 14th is the end of the Nats regular season. So like we said, time is running out. So it's going to be interesting to see, do we see MacKenzie Gore? If so, for how long? Do we see Joey Meneses play more at first base? Maybe Davey's waiting until later in the year. Hey, 3 weeks, maybe Davey's waiting till the last day of the season to make that change. It is strange. But yeah, time is running out. So if you're going to do stuff, let's do it now. Let's see some different things. Let's see people be put in some different positions if, in fact, you want to evaluate people and see how this season ends up playing out. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on Twitter at @Nats_chat. You can email the podcast, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. You get yourself a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt by going to natschatpodcast.square.site. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
As Rutledge gets the three-quarter swing, he's got that first strikeout. Diaz gathers down the third base side, and Green won't even run it out. Jody Sweeten, full house, get him out of there, baby!